Hello friends, welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to be covering the drying process of the flowers that we prepped yesterday on my channel. If you didn't see that, go back a video and check it. It's like at the very end. I rambled through it a lot, but we're going to roll into silica drying these today. All of these, I have a bunch of silica ready. I personally have over 70 plus probably pounds of silica. So we're gonna process all of these today and we're gonna get started. This is what silica looks like. It's a sand-ish texture. You can see that. See? The silica that I use is a mixture, kind of a blend of stuff. So you'll see that some of the colors that I have here are different. So it'll be like blue, orange, pink, green. That's because mine are in various stages of absorbency. Finishing our prep on our flowers. I just want to show you guys, this is what silica looks like. Don't open your mouth while I do it. You should be ideally wearing, see this, in a well-ventilated area, with a mask, with gloves, with glasses. I'm not gonna wear a mask or a respirator in this video because I don't want it to obscure what I'm saying. But do as I say, not as I do. Wear a mask or a respirator when you're using silica. All right, these are my lungs. I get to make the decision. Today, we're drying flowers. We're gonna start with these hydrangeas. Okay. Clip them up to where I want them to be. This level of silica is about where I want this to start these hydrangeas, and you'll see why. This is probably about 2.5 inches, maybe, in depth. Wear gloves. Try to not let your stem, your wetness on your stem when you pull it out of the water, try to not let the water touch your silica because it's going to take up a lot of absorbency. It's just kind of a waste. So you want to avoid getting your little droplets in there to where it brings. You want it like this, upside down. You're going to place first, dig yourself a nice little divot here so that it has a nice little place to rest. Okay, pop that in there and you're just going to let it sit. All right. We're gonna move on to the next one. Right up on that stem. This silica needs dried, so this is gonna take a little bit longer than it typically would. And it's like at the end of its absorbency life currently. Yeah, you're gonna have to dry it soon, probably after this one. If you see my phone camera over here, mind your business. You're gonna want something to scoop it with, preferably something light. Start with your centers, and I just like to do a light little dusting all over the top here. And then you're gonna start to go around and build a moat. Little wall around. Little wall around. You're basically burying your hydrangea alive. Literally, actually. Be easy and very light when you're encountering the petals. When you put it in there, you got to start moving because the silica will start to work fast, especially if it's fresh. And you'll notice as you go around and around, the more you go, the more the silica will settle into the middle parts, so you won't have to do as much work in the end, which is what you want with hydrangeas. You're gonna gently pour in the centers. Try to not hold your silica up too high because that's how you create a lot of dust. If you hold it lower and you pour slower, you won't get as much dust. That also helps keep your petals more structured because you're allowing the sand, the silica sand, to settle into the places that it wants to settle instead of forcing it all in at once. That's how you squish your petals. This is the part that takes, it's tedious. time consuming. For me, I just kind of get into the flow. Try to stay away from your petals until the very end. You can see just how much silica, because this was absolutely full, and we're already halfway through, just for 2 hydrangeas. Granted, I had a lot already in here, but still, you need that really solid base so that you can ensure you don't have any undried parts of your flower. If you want them structured a certain way, pop it up, pour some silica behind it, lock it into place. A little shimmy. Now to finish off these bottom petals, I'm going to go all the way back around just like we did in the beginning and build back up and let the silica just fill itself in. You can kind of see how the petals will hold their shape as you fill it in really slowly. You really want to make sure the silica is nice and in there because you do not want your flower to rot. Last little bit. After it's all in there, you're going to settle it in. Make sure none of your flowers are exposed once you settle it. You don't want anything to be exposed. So I'm going to cover this little section up here. Boom, boom, boom. Just like that. This container is done. This is maxed out. I wouldn't put anything else in here. You could, but it's probably not going to work out that great. So I wouldn't. That's just my recommendation. So this one's maxed out. We're done with this one. We're going to pop this one over to the side and start on another one. This is what happens when you leave flowers in too long. They completely fall apart in the silica. You have to monitor every aspect of the drying process, unfortunately, until you figure out the right method and timing that works for you. And even then, you can have a rose that takes 2 weeks, or you can have a rose that takes 4 days. Right, we're gonna get to the calla lilies now. They're kind of pretty. You're gonna cut your stem as far up as you can. Same thing. You don't want to get your flowers too close to each other. They need to have a little bit of space so that they can breathe. We're just going to fill those up. And then we're going to cover the tops of those. These have been sitting in the water since 2 days ago, I think, Monday. You're going to take your stem. You want to leave a little bit of these because you're going to have to stem these later. It's going to be a pain in the ass if you have to stem them all the way up. So you want to leave at least 1 inch. I'm going to hold and then just like that. Any of them that look dead or sickly, you can pop them out at this point. I'm going to stick my finger in here and encourage it to just finish opening. This one's not super dense, so we don't have to remove a lot. I literally took out 2 petals. Grab it from the center, just like that. Push it in until it sits up on its own, just like that. Look how pretty she is. You want to get as close to the base of the petal as possible. Get in here. Right. You might overpluck the first time you pluck them. That's fine. You might underpluck. You might let one be too much. That's okay too. I like for my rose centers to show it's all about personal preference. A little floppy. That that means you need to be extra gentle because it is like right at the end of its life. Pretty much at any point, these petals could just fall right off. You can also do a little gentle spin. And there that is. This is about as close as you can get space-wise to your placement. The roses, we're actually going to start with the centers. Spread your center open. Do just a nice little pour right there. Same thing here. Just enough to fill it to the top. This is just to give you a little structure along the way, especially for those center petals, because you don't want your outer petals to start pushing in and closing in. The same thing that we did with the hydrangeas, we're going to do with the roses, and we're going to create a wall around all of these roses. And I'm going to take and go around each one. Not too much, just sprinkle a little at a time. Doesn't have to be perfect. And just start filling. And that is the roses. This is an airtight container, genuinely. The other ones that you saw were not. As the drying process goes, that is all we're doing for today. These flowers will sit for a few days, depending on a few factors. So these were pretty wet. I had just gotten them from the store. They had sat in water for 2 days and had enough time to soak up some more water. So that they could open. So we want to let them sit for at least 4 to 5 days. At 4 to 5 days, they're probably okay to check. I would pull one out, check it, make sure it's done in the center. If it's not done, don't bother putting it back in, because once you pull it out, it's pretty much done. If it's not completely dried, when you pull it out, it's not going to get there. So let them sit. If they're not dry after 4 to 5 days, let them sit for another couple of days. Check them again. If they're still not dry, it can take up to 2 weeks for some types of flowers, even more than that, just depending on the type of flower. When I get these roses into the silica, probably 4 or 5 days. These yellow roses that I just put in, these are probably 3 or 4 days, just because there's not as many petals, they're not as dense. Hydrangeas, typically 1 to 4 days. Probably come out with a list of flowers and their drying times at some point in a video, so keep an eye out for that. It's something to look forward to in the future. For today, this is all we're going to do. We're going to leave these to sit. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments. I would be happy to answer them for you. Make sure you wash your hands afterwards. I recommend wiping your face off because the silica can kind of settle on your skin and make your skin dry. Definitely wear moisturizer before you use silica. If your flowers are too far gone, like this little guy here, that is a great time to hang dry them. This is a great candidate for hang drying because it's a little too floppy to go in the silica. The silica is just gonna weigh it down. It's gonna squish. It's not gonna look very pretty. I have learned by trial and error myself with that one. So if you have a too floppy flower, hang dry it. If you have a too floppy flower, hang dry your floppy flower. And they'll turn out really nice and pretty. It's still not gonna be like, you're not gonna have that structure that you would have if you silica dried it, but it's a great way to still use the stems that you have that are at the end of their life. That's all I have for you guys today. I'm gonna go pick my son up from school and get back here and clean all this mess up. So I hope you have a great day. Thanks for being here. We'll see you in the next one.